But for the Yankees, I think it's time to sell. Now, that's not a very popular opinion in the Bronx or anywhere around the New York area. But in my very honest and non-biased opinion, it just seems like they've been in this rut where it's pretty much been the same young core for about 3 or 4 years now, and they're always able to usually get in the playoffs, except for this year, but have always gotten stalled and have still yet to reach a World Series since 2009, which is one of the longest droughts that they've gone on in their history, which is amazing to say for any other team, but for the Yankees, that's a huge drought. And I know that they hate the word rebuild, but in such an unprecedented drought that they're in right now, it might be worth it because you have a very, very, very valuable asset in Aaron Judge, and I know he's the most popular Yankee out there. He is the face of the team, but they could get a lot in return for him. I know a couple Bay Area teams might want to get a big power hitting outfielder like Aaron Judge. That could be the Giants, of course, who lead the NL West right now. Very big surprise team, and they might. The Yankees could get Mike Yastrzemski out of them, a few prospects, and he's spent a lot of time in the minors, but now he's kind of solidified himself as a major leaguer. He's the grandson of Carl Yastrzemski, of course. It would be weird to see a Yastrzemski in pinstripes, but I wouldn't be extremely surprised if I see that happen. I would be a little bit surprised if I saw them deal Aaron Judge, but if it were for, with a team like the Giants or even the A's with Matt Chapman, another power hitter who would probably fit pretty well in the Yankee Stadium short porch right field for a lefty. He's a guy who can really smack the ball, and it plays in a very much a pitcher's park in Oakland and still puts up big home run numbers. So that's another option that they have. But I don't know. I just feel like you have to. If you're a Yankee, if you're in the Yankees organization right now, you have to come to terms with the fact that it's just not your year, and I don't think that next year will be your year either unless you start making some moves. So obviously, Aaron Judge is the face of the organization. It would be a very rash decision. But coming from a guy who's a fan of a team who made a very rash decision to trade our face of the franchise, I'm not too terribly mad about that right now as we stand a year removed from that trade and back in first place. So who knows? Maybe that happens with the Yankees. There's a lot of things, a lot of question marks with that team right now.
Thomas Aiello is shaking his head as our Yankees fan here. I think I understand your point about them selling. They're not going to, though. I really think there's no way they do. I think if this wasn't the New York Yankees, most teams, like let's say this is a mid-market team, and they've had the season the Yankees have had, I think it would be kind of in between. Maybe they would buy a little, maybe they would sell a little. But it's the New York Yankees with all their past, with all their expectations going into this year, with what the lineup can do. We've talked all about it. For me, that pushes them over the edge into at least looking into buying. And I think Brian Cashman's definitely going to buy. But the issue is I'm not sure if they're willing to go over. I think that the finances surrounding them is also an interesting argument as well. They don't have a ton of money, I don't think, to go out and get a guy right now, which is weird to say for the New York Yankees, but because of the salary cap, because of all sorts of the luxury tax, all sorts of that different stuff, that's too much to get into in one conversation. But that plays into it as well, which is why I don't know if they're going to be buyers either. I think I could really see them, as much as I think they're a couple pieces away. I think they need an outfielder. I think they need a bat and maybe a starting pitcher, because you don't know what Kluber and Severino are going to bring when they come back. Even though the pitching's been good, it's you don't know. It's still a question mark. So definitely bringing in an arm, and then they definitely need an outfield bat as well. If they really think they can go out and make both of those moves to really help their team, they should go out and do it, because those moves could change the situation and could help them get on a run. But I don't know if those moves are out there, and I don't know if the Yankees are even willing to make those.
I'm gonna go in a place where not everyone goes, and that's deep cut land. Now, this idea may be a little insane, a little asinine, whatever word you want to use. The Yankees should trade for players that will carry over to next year. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, they've been in the Kyle Gibson thing to pair with Gallo and that whole thing. Those are two players that fit more than a few needs for them, and they carry over into next year because Gallo has arbitration next year and Gibson will be on and expiring. So if he's good and if you want to flip him for something next year, it's not the worst idea. But I think this year, the offense is just, for the Yankees, it's so shot and it is so stale that it's getting to the point where I'm starting to question if Brian Cashman should be allowed to touch this team anymore, because he makes the same moves now for 4 or 5 years where it's just right-handed hitting, 3 true outcome players, and they can't run the bases.
That's exactly, well, I guess Joey Gallo's a lefty, but that's exactly what Joey Gallo is.
Right, and I like Gallo. I think he's a good player. He's a good defensive outfielder, and he can obviously whack the ball around. The power is just unmatched. But having another guy who just bats on the other side of the dish that does all the same things that 9 or 10 of other hitters they have do is just redundant. They're not going to win. And I've been saying trade Luke Voit. I've been saying this for 2 years now, because the first baseman position on defense, and it's not the most valuable defensive spot in the world. All you really have to learn how to do is scoop the baseball. That's really what it boils down to. And if you want to have LeMahieu play first and Torres goes back to second, they sign a shortstop, let's say, and you can move people around, I think that definitely opens up some stuff in the infield. But Voit is probably the only tradable thing that they have, because Frazier and Duhar, any other of these so-called valuable assets are just ashes at this point. Chapman, maybe you can get something with him because he made the All-Star team. Maybe a team bites on that. But they should just honestly either do nothing or trade for guys that will carry over and then go for it next year, because this season is just so washed at this point for them. I don't think they should do really anything.